The slap echoed through the speakers like a gunshot. 500 people heard it. The microphone made sure of that. My father stood there on stage, gripping my wrist, his hand still raised from hitting me across the face. My mother screamed from her seat, not at him, but at me. "You're just a failure in a gown. You don't deserve that degree." This was my graduation day. I was valedictorian, and my parents just assaulted me in front of everyone. But here's the thing they didn't know. While they were up there humiliating me, destroying what should have been the proudest moment of my life, I'd already set something in motion. Something that would change everything. They thought they were putting me in my place. They had no idea what I was about to take from them. My name is Hannah Hartley, and this is the story of how I finally fought back. I need you to understand something about my family first. I wasn't always invisible to them. I think I was born that way. My brother Owen? He was the golden child from day one. Mom used to say he was born special. The kind of kid who deserved everything, every opportunity, every celebration, every dollar they had. And me? I was the helper, the shadow. The kid who learned real early that nobody was coming to my school performances or science fairs. When I was 10, I spent 2 weeks in the hospital with pneumonia. I remember staring at that door every single day, waiting for them to walk through it. They never did. Owen had a basketball tournament. That was more important. So I learned. I learned to walk myself home from school. I learned to do my homework without anyone asking how my day went. I learned to celebrate my own victories because nobody else was going to do it for me. The worst part wasn't the neglect itself. It was how normal they made it seem. Like it was just the natural order of things. Owen deserved attention, and I didn't. They never sat me down and said it out loud, but their actions said it every single day. My family didn't notice me disappearing into the background. They were too busy cheering for Owen. He got a car at 16, a nice one. He got a fully funded out-of-state education, even though his grades were barely passing. And when he moved back home at 27 with no job, no plan, and no rent money, Mom called it supporting his potential. I remember asking once, just once, if they could help me with textbooks. It was my sophomore year, and I was struggling to afford the required materials for my advanced chemistry course. My dad looked at me like I'd asked him for a kidney. "You have scholarships, don't you?" he said. "Figure it out." Meanwhile, Owen's car needed new tires that same week. They paid for those without blinking. I worked 2 campus jobs and tutored on weekends just to buy groceries. Just to survive. But I didn't complain. I kept my head down and I worked. I studied. I dreamed quietly about a life they had nothing to do with. And somehow, through all that silence, I built something real. Something that was entirely mine. Graduation morning came, and I was ready. I'd earned the honor cord, that gold rope you wear around your neck when you graduate with academic awards. It took years to get that. Years of late nights and early mornings and pushing through exhaustion when I wanted to quit. When the sunlight hit it that morning, it shimmered. And for just 1 second, I let myself imagine my mom smiling at me, proud. I imagined my dad patting my shoulder. I imagined Owen joking that he always knew I'd make it. That fantasy lasted about 30 seconds. I met them outside the stadium, and my mom's first words to me were, "That rope around your neck, is that really necessary? You're not trying to show off, are you?" My dad didn't even say hello. He just sighed and said, "Keep things simple up there. Don't embarrass us. Don't embarrass them." Around us, other families were crying happy tears, hugging their graduates, taking pictures like these were moments they'd treasure forever. One girl's little sister held up a handmade glitter sign that said, "You did it." I used to make signs like that for myself when I was younger. Because nobody else would. I swallowed the hurt and told myself this day was bigger than them. I wanted it to be, anyway. But sometimes life waits until you're rising to show you exactly who's been trying to pull you down all along. Inside the stadium, I lined up with the other graduates. My honor cord felt warm against my neck. Around me, people were excited, nervous, calling their families to make sure they got good seats. I could hear snippets of conversation. A girl behind me was FaceTiming her grandmother who couldn't make it. "I'm so proud of you, baby," the grandmother said, her voice crackling through the phone. The girl was crying happy tears. I looked away. Then my dad appeared at the barrier separating the graduates from the guests. He motioned me over with 2 fingers, like I was a kid being called to the principal's office. I walked over, my heart pounding. He looked me up and down with cold eyes. "Keep your speech short. Don't try to make it emotional. No bragging. This isn't about you." My breath caught. "Dad, it's valedictorian. I'm supposed to." He leaned in close, his voice dropping low enough that only I could hear. "You don't deserve that degree." The words hit me like ice water. I stared at him, thinking I must have misheard. But he didn't blink, didn't take it back. He just let that sentence hang there between us like a verdict he'd been waiting years to deliver. Behind him, my mom rolled her eyes at my expression. "Oh, don't make that face. Just get through this, okay? And try not to draw attention. Try not to draw attention." At my own graduation, as valedictorian, I stepped back into line, gripping my gown to steady my hands. The music started. Names began echoing through the speakers as graduates walked across the stage one by one. My hands were shaking, but something else was happening inside me. Something sharp and clear and new. I'd spent my whole life making excuses for them, telling myself they were just stressed, just disappointed, just misunderstood. But standing there, hearing my own father tell me I didn't deserve the thing I'd fought hardest for, I finally saw it. They weren't afraid I'd embarrass them. They were afraid I'd outgrow them. When they called my name, the stadium erupted in applause. For a moment, it felt unreal, like the sound couldn't possibly be for me. I climbed the wooden steps, my speech trembling slightly in my hand. The lights were hot on my skin. My heartbeat was loud but steady. I stood behind the podium, took a breath, and then everything shattered. My mother's voice cut through the applause like a knife. "You're just a failure in a gown," she screamed, standing up, pointing at me like I'd committed some crime. Confusion rippled through the crowd. People turned to look. I froze. Then my father moved. Fast. Angry. He pushed through the aisle, stormed up the steps, grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise, and slapped me across the face. The microphone caught it. The crack echoed across the entire field. Nobody moved. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. My cheek burned. My ears rang. But my mind went eerily quiet. I could taste blood in my mouth. My vision blurred for just a second, then sharpened. My father leaned in close. "I told you not to embarrass us." Embarrass them? My vision sharpened. Everything around me blurred except his face, his anger, his shame. And I realized something in that moment. He wasn't ashamed of hitting me. He was ashamed people saw him do it. Security rushed forward, voices overlapping. "Sir, you need to step back. Sir, step away now." My mother shouted at them, insisting they didn't understand. "She's been difficult her whole life. You don't know what we've dealt with." Owen ducked his head, trying to hide, but I saw him. He looked embarrassed, but not for me. For himself, for being associated with this. My graduation ceremony dissolved into chaos because of the people who were supposed to love me. As security pulled them away, my professor rushed to my side. "Hannah, are you okay? Can you hear me?" His face blurred a little. Not because I was crying, I wasn't. But because some part of me was collapsing inward, trying to process what had just happened. Then something inside me hardened. I straightened up, ignoring the throbbing in my cheek. "I'm fine," I whispered, and I finished walking across that stage. I shook the dean's hand with fingers that only trembled slightly. He squeezed my hand a little longer than usual, his eyes kind. "You earned this," he said quietly. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Those words almost broke me. Almost. The audience cheered louder than before. Maybe out of pity. Maybe out of outrage. Maybe because they just witnessed something unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. When the ceremony ended, I didn't go meet my classmates. I didn't search for anyone. I walked straight to the administration building. The hallway inside was quiet, fluorescent lights humming faintly overhead. When I reached the financial aid window, my voice didn't waver. I need a printed breakdown of every payment made for my tuition. Every semester. Every source. The woman behind the desk hesitated, looking at my bruised cheek. "Are you sure you're okay, honey?" "I'm fine," I said. "I just need those records." She nodded. A few minutes later, she handed me the pages. I stood there reading line after line, confirming what I'd already suspected. They had contributed nothing. Not one single dollar. Every scholarship. Every grant. Every late-night shift. Every tutoring session. Every sacrifice. It was all me. The woman was still watching me. "Everything all right?" I looked up at her and smiled. A real smile. "Actually, yes. Everything's perfect." And just like that, something clicked into place. Clean, final, inevitable. I walked back to my apartment still wearing my gown, the honor cord brushing against my arm with every step. When I closed the door behind me, the silence felt heavier than the applause had. I spread the financial printouts across my table. Scholarships, grants, research stipends, awards, summer program credits, tutoring income, bills I'd paid from working late in the university lab. The truth glared at me in black ink. Every achievement I had, I'd earned alone. Then I remembered something. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out an envelope my parents had given me last year. "Just sign these," my dad had said. "It'll make things easier for us when we retire." I'd thought, stupidly, that it was the first time they'd trusted me with something important. That maybe, finally, they saw me as capable, as an adult. Now I knew better. Inside were documents appointing me as temporary proxy in emergencies. Legal authority to manage their retirement fund if they couldn't. They never imagined I'd actually use it. They assumed I'd always stay small, grateful, obedient. They assumed wrong. The next morning, I sat across from a financial advisor in a small office downtown. My cheek was still bruised, but I didn't bother covering it. He reviewed the paperwork carefully. "You have legal authority to restructure the fund," he confirmed. "It's unusual, but it's valid." "I want it protected," I said. "Not liquidated for myself. Just moved somewhere they can't misuse it." He nodded slowly, studying me. "Most people come in angry. You don't look angry." I thought about that. "I'm not angry. I'm done." "There's a difference," he said. "Exactly." By noon, the paperwork was filed. The fund was placed into a trust with protections they couldn't bypass. It would be there for their retirement, but they couldn't drain it, couldn't access it recklessly, couldn't use it to bail out Owen for the 100th time. I wasn't taking their money. I was simply closing the door they kept slamming in my face. Hours later, the video hit the internet. Someone had recorded it. Valedictorian struck by parent on stage. The clip spread fast. First among students, then local news, then across the country. People saw themselves in my stillness, my silence, my refusal to break even when the world watched me shatter. Messages flooded my inbox. Strangers sent support, shared their own stories, asked if I was safe. One email made me stop. A tech investor from Seattle wrote, "Anyone who can hold composure under that kind of pressure has the resilience I want in my lab. Interested in joining my team?" The offer was double what the university had given me. That night, I sat in my dark apartment, the only light coming from my laptop screen. My parents thought they'd humiliated me. Instead, they'd created the moment that changed everything. But I wasn't done yet. The next day, I returned to the university. When the auditorium was empty, I walked back onto that stage. The podium still stood there, silent and waiting. I set up my phone, hit record, and faced the camera. My parents said I didn't deserve my degree. I began. "So let's talk about what I actually deserve." I laid it all out. Calm, factual, steady. The scholarships, the grants, the bills I'd paid alone, the proxy rights they'd signed without reading carefully, the trust now protecting their retirement from their own poor decisions. I'm not destroying their future, I said softly. I'm protecting mine. And honestly, I'm protecting theirs too, because left to their own devices, they would have burned through everything to support my brother's next failed venture. Then, as a symbol, not of revenge, but of closure, I fed the old paperwork they'd given me into a shredder. The sound was slow, deliberate, final. They had no idea what I would do next, I said to the camera. But I hope they learned something from what I did. You can't build someone's cage and expect them to stay once they find the key. I stopped recording. No dramatics. No yelling. Just truth. The video hit 1 million views in 2 days. My parents didn't call at first. Then on day 3, my dad left a voicemail. Hannah, send us the access code to the fund. We can't get in. No apology. No acknowledgement. No humanity. My mom texted hours later. Stop being dramatic. Your father needs that password. I sent one photo back. The shredder. The next text came from Owen. You're really going to do this? They're your parents. I didn't respond to that either. The next week, I boarded a flight to Seattle to start my new job. I didn't tell them. I didn't owe them that. My new workplace was bright, modern, full of people who cared more about ideas than appearances. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. My team lead met me on my first day. We saw what happened, she said. And we want you to know that took courage. The composure, the way you handled it. That's the kind of person we want here. I almost cried. Not from sadness, but from finally being seen for who I actually was. It didn't take long for them to find me. One afternoon after a long strategy meeting, I walked into the lobby and froze. My mother stood there, twisting her handbag. My father hovered beside her, looking older somehow. Deflated. The receptionist gave me an apologetic look. She'd recognized them from the viral video. My mom stepped forward. Hannah, sweetheart, we just want to talk. I kept walking until I stood a deliberate distance from them. Now you want to talk, I said. When there's no stage. No audience. No applause to drown out who you really are. My father cleared his throat. Your brother told us you exaggerated things online. Really? I said. Because the slap wasn't edited. The scream wasn't edited. And neither were your words. They flinched but said nothing. I handed them an envelope. Inside were copies of everything. Payment records. Scholarship notices. Grant approvals. Their proxy signatures. Documentation showing the trust was legally protected. My mom's hands trembled as she opened it. Why are you doing this to us? I looked at her evenly. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm simply stopping what you did to me for years. My dad opened his mouth, but I cut him off. You taught me something important, even if you didn't mean to. You taught me that some people only love the version of you they can control. And once you grow past that version, they try to crush you back into it. Silence stretched between us. You can leave now, I said gently but firmly. There's nothing left to discuss. They left without another word. Their footsteps faded down the marble hallway until they were gone completely. I exhaled slowly, realizing this was the moment I'd been walking toward my whole life. Not revenge. Not triumph. Freedom. 3 months later, I presented my research at a conference in Chicago. Early detection models I'd spent years working on. Afterward, a dean approached me. I watched your story, she said. But your work speaks louder. Have you ever considered leading your own program? I felt that same clarity I'd felt on stage the day everything fell apart. Only this time, it didn't come from pain. It came from becoming who I was always meant to be. Chicago felt like a second beginning. The air was colder, cleaner, like it was cutting away whatever still clung to me from the past. I settled into my new role, leading a small research team, guiding students who reminded me of younger versions of myself, kids who never had anyone believe in them. For the first time in my life, I woke up without bracing for someone's disappointment. Then Owen reached out. A short message. Our parents had kicked him out. Blamed him for everything. Claimed he'd made them look bad. He said he had nowhere to go. He asked if he could stay with me. I didn't reply. Instead, I mailed him a photo from graduation. The moment of the slap, frozen midair. A reminder of how cycles break. I framed that photo in my new office. Not as a wound, but as proof that rising isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet decision to walk away and never look back. My parents still pretend none of it happened. Owen still waits for a reply. But I've learned something important. Freedom isn't granted. It's claimed. One boundary at a time. That slap was supposed to put me in my place. Instead, it set me free. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about breaking free from toxic families and finding your own strength. Sometimes the people who try to break you end up being the ones who set you free.